first review of a 2016 album. It's about time. Malibu by Paak. Let's go. Hello everyone, it is the Afro Avenger, and it is time for another album review, and today's album is Malibu by Paak. It was released January 15th of this year, 2016. Chart information, it peaked at number 79 on the US Billboard 200, and it was released on the labels Steel Wool, OBE, Art Club, and Empire. And its singles were The Season / Carry Me, Am I Wrong, Room in Here, and Come Down. So without further ado, let's get this started. So here we are with my first official album review of a project released this year. To be honest, I wasn't anticipating this album all that much. Before this album, I didn't even know who Paak was, but after hearing this project, I just knew I had to review this album on my show. Hands down, one of the best albums I've heard recently, and trust me, I've heard a lot of albums recently. This album blends the attitude of hip-hop with the sexuality of an R&B album. We see Anderson both rapping and singing throughout this record, and he does both with such precision and grace that it's hard to believe that he isn't more well-known right now. I'm sure many people have already pointed this out, but Anderson definitely sounds a lot like Kendrick Lamar, especially when rapping. He has that sort of high-pitched voice that you hear a lot on Kendrick's songs like Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe or Institutionalized. Fortunately for Anderson, his voice is just unique enough to not be a straight replica of Kendrick's. Many have also drawn comparisons between this album as a whole and Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly, stating that like Kendrick, Anderson was able to masterfully blend the smooth R&B soul feeling with aggressive trap-influenced beats and occasionally hear a bit of boom bap as well. Many of the tracks on this album delve into the psyche and the character of Paak, such as his upbringing, his love life, and his sexual nature. The first track, The Bird, which to me was an incredible opener and had me hooked from beginning to end the way an album should, mainly dealt with Anderson's childhood and how he grew up in a harsh manner, with his father being behind bars, his mother being a farmer with a gambling problem, and having to quickly grow up among all this stress. But it's done over such incredible instrumentation, with a funky bass line, jazz piano chords, and a vocal ensemble that resembles a contemporary gospel choir. Even though portions of this album are serious, there are tons of moments on this album where Anderson is being playful, mainly when he's doing a sexually driven R&B track such as Silicon Valley, which deals with his sexual relationship with the girl he's with, and at the same time, he's trying to reach her heart through sexual activity with her. She's sexually and emotionally insecure, and Anderson wants her to open up to him, physically and metaphorically. This track in particular shows a great deal of influence from Prince, of all people, who had many songs in this style on later albums such as Musicology and 3121. While most tracks have a nice R&B groove, some tracks like Am I Wrong, which features Schoolboy Q, has a dance vibe to it, the kind you'd hear in a club with thumping bass and disco hooks. This track is all about how Anderson has always wanted to make a good first impression, and proclaiming that whenever an opportunity is given to him, he takes it, no questions, no matter what, and how he has no time to waste in his life. He's actually speaking directly to his life, telling it he doesn't want to waste his time. As usual, Schoolboy Q is really good over this track, but it's certainly odd to hear him over a beat such as this with its funky, groovy nature. Another dance track is Lightweight, which features the Free Nationals United Fellowship Choir. It blends the fast-paced electro-funk, disco, dance pop style with a kind of gospel-esque chorus. The lyrics are really quite simple, and I would imagine this track is more to dance to than anything, but it was still really enjoyable for what it's worth. Now, R&B and dance don't take up all of this album. Some tracks like Heart Don't Stand a Chance are pure hip-hop at its finest. Blending his smooth, savory singing voice with his snide, matter-of-fact style of rapping makes for a really good track, this one. It's the first track on the album where we're introduced to a girl that Anderson talks about throughout the album. This track is really just them kind of meeting each other for the first time and how they can't take their eyes off each other. Now would probably be a good time to mention the various samples and voice clips strung throughout this album. At the end of pretty much every track, and sometimes thrown inside the track, there are voice clips of different scenarios and events. These come from a coming-of-age film called Big Wednesday, which tells the story of three surfers who are best friends and experience the struggle of growing up in the 60s amidst war and a lot of pressure. The film takes place in Malibu, which is the same setting of the album, of course, and I think these samples fit perfectly with how the story and the album progresses, as both have a lot of the same ideas going on. Other hip-hop tracks like Water are much harder and grittier, but still retain a sense of refined jazziness with hints of light funk sprinkled on top. Much of it deals with Anderson's struggles to reach success and all the hurdles he had to overcome in order to get there. A really deep success story kind of track with all the makings of a classic tune, not to mention the feature by BJ the Chicago Kid on the hook, as well as the beat, which was produced by none other than Madlib. A lot of the same can be said about the following track, The Season/Carry Me, a two-part track. It retains a kind of classic looping type of beat reminiscent of hip-hop albums from the mid to late 90s, with piano samples and gritty bass. The first half is mostly talking about his childhood again, and various events that went on during his childhood, namely continuing on about how his mother was a farmer, and how many of his musical idols died when he was young because of fame, and how he's not going to let fame and wealth change him at all. The second half, Carry Me, makes many references to his now-deceased mother and makes comparisons with childhood and adulthood, constantly repeating the phrase, "Mama, can you carry me?" Children, of course, love to be carried by their mothers, and as Anderson was growing up, he needed a lot of emotional support, so he often relied on his mother for that support. And in this song, he's grieving the loss of his mother and recounting childhood events such as wearing his first pair of Jordans and meeting his first love. With the ending sample of this track, it leads right into the following feisty track. Put Me Through is about Anderson being in a destructive sexual relationship with a girl who is seriously into BDSM, and while Anderson knows it's not good for him, he still loves every bit of it. Really taboo stuff going on here. It's all done over a dark, heavy, Baby Huey-esque R&B type of beat that really makes the danger of Anderson's situation all the more real for the listener. Without You was a really cool track that happens to feature Rhapsody, who some of you might remember from Kendrick's album. This neo-soul influenced hip-hop track is Anderson finally reclaiming his love for the girl he's been talking about throughout the entire album. A lot is going on in this track, as Anderson is not only proclaiming his love, but he's also accusing the girl of only being with him because he's famous, even though they met when he was dead broke. The girl, on the other hand, portrayed by Rhapsody, is accusing Anderson of cheating on her, just like how his father cheated on his mother, again referencing his childhood. It's a constant struggle of trust and assurance. It's one of the more gentle hip-hop tracks in the album, even though what's going on is in no way gentle at all. A good number of other tracks continue the story of Anderson and this girl, such as Waterfall, which is simply about Anderson wanting to have sex with her, but, like Kendrick, likens her vagina to walls. The track Your Prime reveals that she's actually quite young, still in college as a matter of fact. With Anderson's current age, the age gap could be nearly 10 or more years apart. Very interesting point to make on this album. Nearing the end, we have the track Celebrate, which has an absolutely nostalgic classic Motown soul vibe, like it's straight from The Temptations or Marvin Gaye, or perhaps even from Sly and the Family Stone's earlier work, with its simple but funky bass line, gospel-style piano, and rudimentary drum pattern. Much of it deals with appreciating your roots, something he touched on in The Bird when he said he learned his lessons from the ancient root. He's saying we have to celebrate life with the time that we have left, but not forgetting, about where we came from. On the final track, The Dreamer, we have one half of the classic rap duo Black Star and hip-hop legend Talib Kweli, along with the Timon Family Choir, on an inspirational track that's meant to inspire and encourage the youth who have gone through, hard times just like Paak has. Absolutely a fantastic ending to this record that just leaves the listener wanting more, yet knowing that Anderson just capped off an incredible project. Overall, this album is a true work of musical art, one of the best albums I've heard in recent months. Its texture, its artistry, its lyricism, its honesty, its musicality, the way it feels so classic yet it's so new. I loved every bit of this album, and it makes me long for his next project. I'm really eager to see how he'll follow up with, after this amazing project, but we still have a long way to go. It just came out, so no need to rush, of course, but it was such an extraordinary album to kick off the year with, and I'm calling it now. Album of the Year nominee, Hip-Hop Album of the Year nominee, and Best New Artist nominee for the next year's Grammy Awards. I really didn't have any specific favorite tracks, as every single one was to die for, but if I could pick three, they would be The Bird, since that was, the one that really pulled me in on the first listen. Silicon Valley for its pure soulfulness in an era where a lot of soul music is just overproduced and there really is no soul at all, and Celebrate for its simple but timeless element that makes it such an enjoyable track. Again, every track is really great, and some tracks I didn't even get to talk about, like Parking Lot, which has a kind of jazz fusion style going for it, or Room in Here, which features The Game and Sonia Elise over a very East Coast style jazzy beat. It's also amazing, and I can't recommend that you listen to this or pick this album up enough. The way Anderson .Paak is such an incredible vocalist while still being a skillful rapper is incredible, and the way he's able to blend both in each track without one overshadowing the other is astounding. I recommend this album to anyone who is into hip-hop, R&B, soul, funk, dance, jazz, or if you were fans of albums like To Pimp a Butterfly, which had a lot of the same kind of stuff. If you like that, you'll love this album. Anyways, that does it for this album review. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did enjoy, please hit the like button and also subscribe if you want to see more. And if there is a song or an album that you want to see reviewed on this show, just leave a comment down below or check out my Facebook or my Twitter. The links are in the description. But anyways, that does it for this. Thank you all again for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. So long.